I also wanted to talk about ritual pseudosciences that influenced some people in the past. Monogenesis and polygenesis for much of human history. Humans were thought to have come from a single common ancestor, the ancestor being Adam and Eve. This is one beginning, but polygenesis rose in popularity during the Enlightenment. Polygenesis meaning that different races and ethnic groups came from different beginnings, not just one, Adam and Eve. And with the rise of Linnaeus's system for classifying organisms, this is a convenient way to organize human beings, especially for European Christians during the Crusades. There's also eugenics, which is selective breeding or lack of, to promote a more perfect human. This really rose to prominence in the early 20th century, in an era that's not so unbiased. So there's a lot of, I think we all know eugenics was a pretty influential pseudoscience, especially in places like Nazi Germany, where they seek a more perfect human race. Now I want to talk about a more specific case study at Goshen College, the Mennonite Wall. So is Goshen College ethnically exclusive? Goshen College claims 35% students of color, 9% international students, and 43% students from a Mennonite background. From my experience and from several of the people I've spoken to, many athletic teams have higher rates of students of color and lower rates of Mennonite backgrounds, of athletes from Mennonite backgrounds, which leads me to believe that a lot of the students of color and students who aren't Mennonite aren't recruited into the general population of Goshen College. Student Senate and other planned activities by students are often dominated by those from Mennonite backgrounds. And people are aware of Goshen College's Mennonite hegemony on campus. It's a pretty large presence. So I wanted to know, how is this Mennonite wall felt by other people on campus? So the first person I interviewed was Regina Stoltzfus, a Mennonite professor of color on Goshen College's campus. As a Mennonite and the only African American professor on campus, Regina is present in both spheres, having studied both Mennonite history and race relations extensively. Professor Stoltzfus has also noticed some of these Mennonite aspects at Goshen College. Some of the things she claimed were noticeable to her included a lot of the Mennonite language and the understanding of Mennonite culture that was assumed at Goshen College. In addition, if you're at Goshen and you're white, oftentimes it's assumed that you are a Mennonite and you do understand these cultural norms. She also notices cliques of students, especially in places like the cafeteria. Normally athletes will occupy the far side of the room, while most others are in the front area. The clique groups of students are noticeable to students and faculty alike. Regina was raised in a Mennonite congregation, which she calls a bootleg Mennonite community. Her congregation was predominantly African American. She was aware that the Mennonite denomination was open to all and was a diverse group of people as a whole. But as she continued in her studies and got older in places like Goshen College, she realized that this wasn't really the case and that her denomination was really a unique denomination, that it was predominantly black. Regina is often called on as a representative of people of color speaking on topics concerning race on behalf of the college. She says that she enjoys this position, but claims it can be tiring. There are only a handful of people that can represent positions such as these, which can be exhausting while continuing with a normal workload as a professor. Regina feels the acceptance of being Mennonite, but simultaneously feels a cultural difference with the rest of campus or faculty. and that she was raised in a different cultural background. I also spoke to several students of color, both Mennonites and non-Mennonites. Malcolm Stovall, Tyra Carver, Trevor Emery, and Evan Bandunga all told me a little bit about their experiences living on a Mennonite campus. All of them said that the Mennonite atmosphere had played a large part in finding of their friend group. Most of them claimed that they couldn't find a solid friend group until junior, senior years, or later years in college. And when they did, it was often in sports or in other cultural commonalities that they had with their friend group. Many said that they were surprised when they first arrived on Goshen College's campus. Calvin even explained it as kind of a culture shock. They explained feelings as if they didn't quite know where they belonged or didn't really understand Mennonite culture. This isn't something that's unique to being a student of color and being Mennonite versus non-Mennonite. There are also people who I've also witnessed people who experience surprise at the liberal voice of Goshen College, something that they didn't expect, something that wasn't really explained to them. So things like that, Goshen College may take people by surprise who don't fit a certain mold. Malcolm also explained to me his position on being Mennonite and African American being relatively unique. He talked about having access to groups of people and opportunities that aren't necessarily available to his friends who are mostly African Americans and on athletic teams. He also spoke about his interest in music at Goshen for the first couple years, but didn't really appreciate the white Eurocentric style of music he was asked to play. He fit the part of a Mennonite in being interested in music, but his cultural identity clashed with the type of music that they really wanted to play. In this case, Malcolm really placed more emphasis on his ethnic identity than his faith identity, which normally we don't see. On this campus, it seems that many people place more emphasis on their faith and their denominational background rather than their ethnic identities. Dominique Chu, a recent Goshen College alumni, expressed some of her struggles as a biracial Mennonite woman in her book, The Meaning of Grace. She discusses things like the unwillingness of her Sunday school to discuss difficult topics concerning race, like the Trayvon Martin verdict and shooting. And she also discusses struggles identifying as an African American Mennonite woman. And this expert from A Piece Could, she describes an experience with the opposite sex. My friend, a man, asked across the table, "Would either of you girls date a black guy?" Huh. I wasn't expecting the conversation to go in this direction, but I guess he's just curious. Both girls nonchalantly shrug their shoulders and say, "Yeah, sure." He turns his head toward me, but his eyes can't seem to match mine. He says, "I don't know if I could ever date a black girl." Could, verb, used to express conditional possibility or ability, as in, I don't know if I could date a black girl, as in, I don't know if it is possible for me to date a black girl, as in, I don't know if I'm able to date a black girl, as if it were dirty, as if it were unacceptable. My immediate response in my head, of course, was to defend my whiteness. But I'm only part black, I wanted to say, but I'm white too. I wanted to make myself look and sound better for him. I wanted him to find me attractive, but I know now he couldn't. He doesn't. He never will, because he doesn't know if he can. This isn't the first time I've heard something like that. A person of color having trouble entering maybe the dating pool or the friendship pool. These are common experiences. Both Malcolm and Dominique also spoke of people's disbelief that they are Mennonite as well, as if it were an anomaly for a person of color at Goshen College to be Mennonite. when Malcolm explains to people that he too is Mennonite, he's met with responses like, really? And Dominique talks about in another piece in her book how a woman doesn't really believe that she's from Kansas because she's African American. Another thing Malcolm expresses is how he felt the tokenism of being a socially active person of color. Similar to Regina, being socially active is something that he enjoys, but remarks that the college often uses him to speak on behalf of the college on racial issues, and then failing to take specific action in the recruitment of local African Americans. They'll use him and his voice to represent the college when it comes time to go out into Elkhart, Goshen, and surrounding communities to recruit African Americans. There isn't the same willingness to go. I also wanted to talk briefly about the Stoltzfus and CIIE scholarship, which are available to people of color. While excellent scholarships for people of color, they come with requirements that aren't necessarily the case for many other achievement scholarships here at Goshen College. The requirements make them available to a distinct group of individuals who apply for it, most notably those with high levels of leadership experience. They're also required to take leadership training throughout their 4 years here, something that isn't expected of other people. So it seems to me that there are attempting to recruit a certain kind of African American or Latino leaders through these scholarships, people that will give their academic body a voice, people that will represent Goshen College well. In this, we see Goshen College recruiting athletes, and we see them recruiting people who do well in leadership positions as people of color, but not so much in between in recruitment of people of color. So what's at stake for the people in this case study? For people of color on campus like those who don't identify as Mennonite, their identity is at stake. They can either choose to compromise defining characteristics such as cultural background, faith views, or even political views to better adapt to being on campus, or accept that there will be some areas on campus where it will always be difficult to fit in for them because of the domination of Mennonite culture on campus. For Goshen College and Mennonite Church USA, it's a willingness to compromise the Mennonite identity of the college and a representative institution of Mennonite Church USA for a more committed process of recruitment and just representation of the Welcome to All statement in Goshen College's faith affiliation. So just some general conclusion. Ethnic exclusion is not a problem unique to the Mennonite faith, but is something that still must be addressed by a denomination that strives to be inclusive, as well as combating violence, in this case, systemic and institutionalized racism. Goshen College may perpetuate racism in ways many don't recognize, which requires political attention as well as an upfront and honesty from the college at explaining what people might come to expect from Goshen, rather than having them feel ostracized once they finally arrive to campus. Goshen College is affiliated with the Mennonite faith, but that shouldn't result in a campus that can be so easily generalized. Thanks for listening, and here are my resources.